DOTE.
So welcome to the advanced tutorial on how to use sync codes. Hopefully you've taken a look at the basic introduction to sync codes, and now we'll add some more advanced features and also some idea about how sync codes really work. So here I've already zoomed in on the waveform. You see here we have a particular thing going on at the other end of the room as she's inspecting the table, and she's talking to herself while she's trying to figure out how she's going to instruct the others back at the main table about her group, how to rebuild what she sees. And you can see here is a sync code for the beginning. So I'll just play it through and you'll see there's no more sync codes until this point here. So let's try that.
The fuck? Oh, okay. Okay.
And then she starts running. So you can see between those two there's no other sync codes. So it's quite a long piece with some pausing. Now what we might want to do is break that up. So for example, I might want to add a sync code at some point, say around the Owen pull on top an orange OK, just to break this up a little. So if I just make some space here just to illustrate, then we've got P2 still, so I'm just going to type P2 and then I'm going to copy paste. We want to take this, or I'll cut and paste, and we want it to be on the new line and also for the translation line, so we'll put that here. And now you can see we've stopped at this point. Now we have no sync code here, so if we just play it and hear the beginning of that.
The fuck? Oh, okay.
You can just see it probably starts about here. About here. Say about here. Now I can click here or I can click here, but a quick thing is if you're typing when you're editing, a faster is to use the shortcut Control M, and Control M will insert at the line that you've selected, and this is the line we're on. Let's say we were typing here. If I say Control M, we get a sync code. So as you're typing, you can just type Control M on the line as you're typing, as you think you've got the right start point, and it will put a sync code. So you don't need to pick up the mouse and then click somewhere. You can do that, but you have to be on the right line, and you can see we did that. If we try to do it again, we'll get an error, and if we did it on a line that has one already or before, we'll get an error. So now we've got roughly our point, and we are on that, so we can hear. Okay, so we hear, and there's the orange OK. So we've now got a new sync coding with the Control M shortcut. Please note that when you add sync codes or delete sync codes, it's instantly saved and it's irreversible. So you can move sync codes around, you can delete them, you can add them, and that's then fixed in that transcript. So when you reopen that transcript, those will be already changed. That means that you can't undo a series of changes. So if you move some around and decide you don't like it, those aren't tracked in this release. So unlike when you make changes in the editor, you can undo changes in the editor. You can't undo changes to sync codes. The same goes for video cues and certain other features as well. So something very important to remember, they're not reversible. That means you don't make loads of changes just as an experiment unless you've made a copy of the transcript. Oh, and there's another thing you can do as well. For example, let's say we're not sure if that was the right point. You can use nudging. And the nudging is according to how much zoomed in you are. We can try a nudge here, and as soon as you nudge, which is with Control H to nudge backwards and Control L, and on Mac that would be Command H or Command L, then you will nudge the current time code on the timeline backwards or forwards. That's because you can roughly guess it, and then you can listen to it and see. So I'm just going to try that now. I'm just going to nudge it back. You can see it moving. We'll see we're way out, so if I use Control and I can nudge it forward, so we're past it. That's a bit too, so that is about the right point. But if I zoom in further, let's say I zoom into here, then we can see It's probably, it can be a bit more refined. So let's select it again and then try with Control H. Now you can hear the little gap before. So this is a proportional. I can move it forward. Now we've gone too far. So I can keep. That's probably about right there. So now we roughly have, and you can of course pick it up and refine it a little bit yourself. That's probably about right. So that means, according to the resolution of your waveform, you can adjust in that granularity using just the keyboard Control H or Control L on Windows, Command H, Command L on Mac, and then you'll be able to adjust the onset of that particular sync code. That means you can add sync codes, Control M, Command M, and you can manipulate where they are without taking your fingers off the keyboard, which is very powerful. If you're just typing away, you can type as you hear this is the beginning of something said, type that in after you've done Control M to put a nice sync code there, and then go back and adjust that using Control H just to get the right onset, and then continue on the line and on to new lines, adding new sync codes without having to pick up the mouse and drag and drop and move around. But of course you can do that as well. Also looping. So for example here, if I just zoom out a little bit, you'll see we have a new one here. This was the onset when she started talking. And this is now the new bit we've got. And then this is the end when she'll start running. So what we can do is, so we want to hear that little bit there before she runs. You can see this in the editor tutorial, but you can click on the first one, and if you press shift you can click on the next one, and then you will be able to loop. Nicely loop between them. And then you can look at the tutorial on editing to see how to loop in other ways and how to undo loops, deselect them, loop them once or loop them many times. So that's another use of sync codes. Sync codes can be a target for showing don't have to do it to the same one. You could actually do it to over several sync codes and then loop that one. For example, we might want to hear this part here. Yeah, see there's a sound of good somewhere in there, and we're listening to that repeated. So that's looping. And lastly, we'd say strategies. We find that when you're working on a transcript, it's best to, if you can, keep your hands on the keyboard. Then you'll be able to quickly type and replay. Look at the playback tutorial to see how to use the different shortcuts to be able to play, so you don't have to move the mouse to play, move the mouse to make a sync code, and then go back to the editor. That's very time consuming. So if you can get used to shortcuts, they're going to really speed up your workflow, adding in a sync code. And the basic way to do is, as you're typing a transcript, as you're moving forward, is adding sync codes quite regularly. It could be on every new turn, every new line. It could be you do it every now and again and then go back and fill it in later. And that's very easy to do. Refining them, you can just do them very roughly, sketch them out where you think major things are, and then start filling in the transcript. And you'll see in the help guide online there are different strategies according to whether you're transcribing from scratch or editing a transcript or commenting on someone else's transcript, ways to use sync codes. So take a look at those tutorials I've indicated to get some more information to make your transcription fun again.